can give me all those papers afterward, right?
Do you want a copy of the sort of the agenda?
The agenda, yeah, if you got one. Yeah, sure.
Gosh, okay.
That's okay.
I'm assuming the guy in the plaid is Marty's brother because he looks exactly
Yeah, that's Marty's brother. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Okay, it's a nice little crowd. Okay. Oh, excuse me while I was going to write a few notes.
Okay, but now we cancel. It's all right. So you probably gonna do the.
I'm going to be speaking.
Okay. So
I'll be saying something not until a little bit later on.
yeah, yeah. So we have a camera facing you. So we're recording you. Okay.
When I speak only.
Yes.
Yeah, but you have for the live stream, you have for the whole thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We have three cameras, so we're good.
Okay.
We covered. What I'm saying is because we cannot mute only your microphone. So loud before we talk. Please.
Oh, so they just basically shouldn't talk.
Yeah. 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 Okay. Thank you.
You the Candyman. Or fall to the Candyman very graciously. See that lady standing up to the left? Smiling with glasses. Right beside Carol. Who is that?
That is one of Marty's tenants.
Hi, Bruce. Hi, Bruce. Brian. Really? Oh.
You know what?
Better occasions. I like. Yeah, thanks. Very good. Thanks. That's a great addition.
Our friend.
I don't know if you remember this. This is a message left. Remember when you had the thing and you had like a picnic? It was like a picnic. And it was like.
As is customary, we'll first recite a chapter of Psalms for the soul. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo yachsar binas desha yarbitzeni, amei menuchos yanaleni. Nafshi yishovev yancheni b'maglei tzedek leman shemo, gam ki elech begel tzemaves, lo yirara ki ata imadi. Shiftecha mishantecha hema yinachamuni, taroch lefanei shulchan neged tzorarai. Dishanta b'shemen roshi kosi revaya, ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai, v'shafti b'veis Adonai le'orech yamim. So as is customary at a funeral, Zecher Nishmas, Marty, Matis ben David, it's going to be slightly impossible to encapsulate the character, the personality, the nuance of all the different facets of Marty's life. But with a person who just lived to love anyone, everyone, instantly, within a moment, as you'll hear from friends of a long time ago, to caretakers of most recent, and to everyone in between, certain people seem to have this magic to be able to connect in a very meaningful and deep way with any and everyone, regardless of who, where they come from, and what they're like. So we're going to have the opportunity and the privilege to hear some words shared by old friends, by people who came into his life most recently, but we'd first like to call Gloria, Marty's friend of 55 plus years, from their first day of mischievism up in Gravenhurst to a friendship that just continued and continued and continued. Please.
Thank you, Rabbi. Wonderful words. Thanks for coming, everyone. It's a sad day, but it's also has to be a joyous day because that's what Marty was all about. Marty lived life to the fullest. Not a day went by that he didn't find something to celebrate, often with many of you, or someone to connect with, someone new, a friend, an old friend, or a new friend. He was a unique individual with a huge capacity for love. That love has come back to him in the past few weeks with an outpouring of affection from many of you and many other friends and family. What I'd like to do is read you a few of the messages that people have left, because it gives you a good idea of how Marty touched so many lives. He brought joy to so many people. He touched people and lifted them up. Ishbel Monroe. Such an amazing smile and laugh. He will be missed by all who knew him. Such a blessing calling him my friend. Tasha Butler. It is so sad when the world loses a bright light of encouragement and positivity. Cynthia Bond. A wonderful spirit, a talent and supporter, always with a smile on his face. Was he ever funny? Was he ever a wonderful promoter of those he believed in? An enthusiast of life? Joanne Smale. His infectious laugh, his positive outlook, his supportive nature, and his friendship. From soup to butter tarts, Marty made an impression on everyone. Joey C. Such a genuine, funny, kind, and generous human. Wonderful memories from the Marty and Avram show through decades of his many projects. Marty was bigger than life, loved by many, and he will be truly missed. Patty Janetta Baker. Marty leaving has been written in the stars for a while, but he was so full of life and personality that it was painful to see his body fail his spirit. Taya Agar. We go way back, often took food guests onto the Marty and Avram show on Q107. I once hired him to help Crane Communications with the PR for the home show, where he portrayed a member of the royal family checking out the dream home at a press event. We stayed in touch after that, would meet at the market on the odd Saturday, where he had to hide his pet dog under his coat while we had a morning coffee. One of the good guys, and a big piece of radio history in the city. Publicist Stephen Weir. Marty was a mensch. He was so kind and made time for everyone. He gave me an apron, which I cherish to this day. I think it's the same one that Avram's wearing. May he rest in peace and power, and may his memory be a blessing to all who knew him. We will speak his name. We will remember him, and we will honor him. Singer Kathy Young. He had a way to make everyone smile. Actress Jocelyn Zuko. Marty did so much for others. I will miss him and his beautiful spirit. Carol Mascardelli. Such a kind and gentle man, he will be missed. Rita DeMontis. A great foodie and the great optimist. We shared a lot of laughs and sampled a lot of food. The catering department in heaven will never be the same. Make a special meal and dedicate it to Marty. Jean Velitis, broadcaster. Oh my God, this is so sad. I am going to write a song for Marty tonight. Eugene Dr. Draw. And that's just a sampling of some of the comments that really reveal the spirit of Marty and how he did touch people personally. For me, Marty was a constant touchstone for 55 years, from our adventures in TV and radio to just being a friend, just being there for one another, or sharing a laugh. He would often say, "It's just good to hear your voice." He truly was the definition of a great friend. I think Marty would say, the best way to celebrate his life is to be kind to one another, forget past grievances, and be thankful for all you have. And most of all, yes, have a good lunch, for Marty knew food brings us all together. Thank you. I hope you remember him well. And now I'd like to bring up somebody who was very special to Marty, especially in the last few weeks and months of his life. A personal care worker who got very close to Marty, who cared above and beyond the call of duty. Would you please welcome to the podium Mark Remark Carrion. Thank you, Mark. An angel.
Hi guys, I'm Mark, one of Marty's caregiver. So, are you strong? This is the first question that Marty has asked me during our first meeting. It's a bit odd for a work interview, but all he wanted was to make sure that I am able to help him mobilize his legs when his legs started to get weak. He kept saying that he is blessed to get help from us, but for me, I am more blessed to have met him. He has inspired me in so many ways, and I am not much of a talker, but Marty always knows that to start small conversations. Marty is one of the sweetest, generous, and most selfless persons I've known. He never failed to check on me even though he's the one in the sick bed. He always tries to crack some jokes and fill the room with laughter. He would always say that my jokes are bad and I need to go to joke school because he's the best. But still, we ended up laughing. I guess it's not that bad after all. I would surely miss our morning talks and your phone calls to check if I was on my way and if I got home safe. I would miss your voice saying, "Hey Siri, call Julius. Hey Siri, call Gloria." And sometimes you mix it up by saying, "Hey Tubi, hey Sibis," and then I'll laugh and tell it's Marty, it's Siri. Or just simply reminding you that the name of Mateo's dog is Bamboo and the name of the restaurant is Sambuca because you worry so much because you keep forgetting it. I would miss his endless stories about his love for food, how much he adores and loves his friends, and the life lessons he shared with me. He wanted me to appreciate the importance of connecting with people and to never forget to reach out to others. When my shift is about to end, he would always say, "Mark, I'm really sad when you leave." Marty, you never wanted to be left alone, but now you are the one who's gone. And today, as we bid farewell to you, Marty, we are the ones who are sad. And if I were to answer your first question during our first meeting, I wish I'm strong enough to accept that you're gone. But I know in my heart that you are in a better place now, free of pain and suffering. Your contagious smile and sweetness will never be forgotten. Thank you for everything. I love you, we love you, and you'll always be in our hearts. Thank you.
I would like to ask Mark, another caregiver that's here. Unless he's not here. Mateo? Mateo is on his way up. You're right. Mateo, please. Yes, absolutely.
So I met Marty 15 years ago, and I remember my first impression very vividly. As he sauntered over to me, he introduced himself to me, and it was at a time in my life where I was pretty low in terms of struggling with my mental health and coming from challenging events like the loss of my mother. And here came in Marty, and he seemed to pick me in the room, sit next to me, and start to tell me who he was in the most joyous manner, with the most inspiring way that celebrated life. And I thought to myself, this is the real deal. This is someone who is so genuine and remarkable. And I thought to myself, or he's not, he's a crackpot. And I remember thinking about that. And I remember thinking, okay, I'll hear from him, maybe, maybe not, in a week's time or so. And the next day he called me. And I thought immediately, no, this is the real deal. And I remember always saying to him, he'd meet hundreds of people, thousands of people. And when he got their number, he'd call them the next day. And I'd say to him, Marty, that's not what you do. You wait it out, you know, you don't come across like desperate. He said, looked at me and always would say, why? And I would say, because that's the way it's done. And he had no qualms about showing how he felt about you. And he had nothing except an embracement and a lovingness for all people. My first, I guess, experience with Marty, when we went out to dinner, and I met Gloria Martin, who I knew Gloria from CFDR, and it was astounding to me. Like, wow, this is someone big. And I met Diane Douglas, who I found out worked at Stratford and Shaw, you know, places that I frequented and adored to go see the stage. And we enjoyed the food, and we had such a great time, and I thought to myself, what wonderful people. And this man surrounds himself with wonderful people. And I later met Avram, who did so much with Marty, and became icons in Toronto and even abroad. Like when we went to Buffalo, the people would stop Marty and say, "You're the food guy," and he would he would, show them affection and warmth, and I felt like, privileged and honored to walk with Marty and be seen and known. And I also met Julius, and he was a remarkable friend. They started out at 14 being two isolated individuals who weren't popular amongst others, but when they got together, the sum of the whole was greater than the sum of the parts, is the way I see it. They played off each other, and they were really funny and hilarious. They do the skits still, and they bring such joy and humor to the place. I thought to myself, just Marty surrounds himself with wonderful, iconic people, and he always invited me with a plethora of people. Whoever he met, he called me to come break bread with him and enjoy his company. He never kept anything to himself. I think from anyone, he was a person who brought people together, and he did it from the immense storage of love in his heart and his desire to see people happy and connected, and nobody alone, because I know that Marty suffered as a young person, and he never ever wanted anyone to suffer what he did, and he made sure that you felt loved in his presence. We lost a really big guy, and there's no replacement. There's just time before we meet again. But I can assure all of you that when we all visit the other side, we will have a tour guide, and we will discover the best bagels in town, and the best cheese blintzes, and the best brisket. So it isn't goodbye, it is see you later. Take care.
Mark, would you like to share a few words? The other Mark did already, don't worry.
Good morning to each and everyone. Marty, it is with a heavy heart that I make this message, but also with deep gratitude for the time we shared. I still can't believe you're gone. It feels like just yesterday we were having one of our many conversations, sometimes light-hearted, sometimes serious, but always with the same care and concern for each other. From the very first day, I could see the kindness in your heart. You were always more concerned about my well-being than your own. You would ask, "Mark, did you sleep? Are you getting enough sleep?" Even when I was working through the night shifts, staying by your side, you always wanted to make sure I was okay. Just like how you would ask, "Have you had dinner? Do you have enough food?" And when you offered me that bread and peanut butter, your comfort food, I couldn't help but smile. You, with your gentle nature, wanted to make sure I had something to eat, even when you didn't feel your best. I'll never forget those small acts of kindness that showed your big heart. Yes, we argued at times. I understood the stubbornness in you, Marty, because of everything you were going through. But even in those moments, I could see beyond the frustration, the pain, and the tiredness, because I knew deep down you were just trying to hold on. And after a few minutes, just like always, we would be okay again. Those moments of tension never lasted long because I understood that you were just trying to take control of what you could in a world that was increasingly out of your hands. And then there were the days when you would ask me, Mark, will you leave me? It broke my heart every time because I could feel your vulnerability. And I will always reassure you with my promise. No, Marty, I will take care of you until your last breath. Seeing the relief and the happiness in your eyes after I said that made me realize how much my words meant to you. You fought so hard, Marty. You truly were a fighter, and even though we both knew the battle you were facing was tough, your strength, determination, and the love you shared with those around you were a constant source of inspiration. I will never forget the way you smiled when you heard those words from me. It gave you peace, knowing that you were not alone in this. And in return, you gave me something I can never fully express, your trust. Your confidence in me to be there, to take care of you, is something I will carry with me always. It was an honor to be a part of your life, to walk beside you in this journey, and to be the one you turned to when things got tough. Marty, I will miss you more than words can say, but I will always carry with me the lessons you taught me, the importance of caring for others, the strength that resides in vulnerability, and the power of simple acts of kindness. You were not just a patient to me, you were a friend, a confidant, and someone I deeply admired. I'm grateful for every moment I spent with you, for every conversation, and for the privilege of being there for you. You fought a hard fight, Marty, and I will carry your spirit with me as I continue to care for others. You may not be there physically, but your impact, your kindness, and your strength will always live on in my heart. Rest easy, my friend. You are at peace now, and I will never forget you.
Thank you, Mark. We'll now go back years, even before Gloria came into the picture, with Marty's oldest friend, Julius. Julius, just to explain, will be speaking from behind over there. It's not a COVID thing. In the Jewish tradition, we have tribes that date back their legacy all the way to the temple period, and they're sensitive around moments of death, as we all should be. There's a very big transformation and change when we realize that the body of the person just housed what was really the essence and the soul of the individual. Certain sensitivities around that, and therefore he's in a separate structure behind there. But please give your attention to Julius, longtime friend.
Marty, I never thought I'd see this day. It's so painful. And I gotta just stop for a minute and realize who you are as a human being, as a soul, as a person, as a Jew, as a friend, as a very kind and caring and passionate individual, passionate about life, passionate about relationships, passionate about making sure that the people in your life have meaning and self-worth, self-esteem, and know that you're a friend. I met Marty at a time when I remember going to this party with a neighbor of mine, a young teenager. I hadn't been to one of these parties in those days in the mid-60s. The parties were, dancing with the Beatle records and schmoozing and everything, but I was quite shy. So shy that I did not have a friend. At the age of 14, I did not have a friend. And you can imagine what kind of issues that creates in the mind of a young individual. Nevertheless, on the advice of somebody else, I went to this party. And similar to what Matteo shared just earlier on, when I got to that party, I was very insecure, very lonely. But I, hung around until this very friendly individual walked over to me, introduced himself, Marty Galin. And it was like a credible experience of having somebody actually just want to reach out to you and welcome you into his own heart. And within a very short period of time, it was clear that he was becoming a friend. And that is exactly what he did. Through a period of often many conversations and phone calls, we got to know each other. And through his sense of humor, we start meeting other people, bringing laughter onto other people's lives. But what was really beautiful about him is he woke up in me a sense of identity of who I was as an individual, to be able to discover myself for the first time, which is something that I wasn't even aware of. And through his friendship, his warmth, and many conversations not only taught me to understand who I was and to be able to communicate with others, but to understand him in a very significant and meaningful way. And what I discovered was that he was a person who really, truly cared for others, who really, truly cared that other people should have a sense of dignity, self-worth, and enjoy humor, enjoy life. His perspective on life was something that was just inborn with him. It was never something that he had to study sources for it, but the meaning of life was all about. He sort of had things figured out from a very young age. What's really interesting is from that young age, there was always a sense of commitment, dedication, that regardless of whatever, you are my friend, Marty. And stuff came up sometimes when I wanted to throw in the towel, but in the end, can't do that to somebody who is your friend. And thank God we stuck it out, because your relationship in my life and the life of so many others was something that really sustained me and helped me get through so many issues and traumas and difficulties. And many of my friends, my relatives, also became very warm and friendly with Marty. You couldn't have an event without Marty, whether it was a Sabbath table, a Passover Seder, a birthday party, going out to some kind of an event, our wedding, whatever. You got to have Marty. Marty's got to be there. And he always took a personal interest in everybody's happiness and well-being, to the extent that he really made people feel good about who they were as individuals. So as I share the opportunity to share my love and dedication for Marty, I remember just in the last few weeks, while Marty was in the hospital, having a very difficult time. And the sad part was visiting him in the hospital. Sometimes the visit had to come to an end, and you had to go. And Marty would say, "No, don't go. Stay another 5 minutes, another 5 minutes." And his passion and his desire to want to keep you there with him so that he could have the comfort and the knowledge and the security of knowing that he has his friend with him, whoever we were, was something that he just didn't want to let go of. And now, oddly enough, Marty, we have to let go of you. And we all love you so much. You were a true friend, an advisor, a counselor, a psychologist, a teacher, a mentor. You had so much. It's true you had a lot of stuff that some of us didn't like. It's true that sometimes you really annoyed us. But in the end, we wouldn't all here be today without one common thing that we can all share, that we love you so much. So Marty, now you're going to be in Olam Haba, the world to come. where your pain can come to an end. You get a chance to enjoy being with your parents, your grandparents, and all our loved ones that have gone before us. I'm not looking forward to the day that I got to leave this world, but I do know that one of the things that I do look forward to is when I do get to the world to come, you're going to be there welcoming me and all others with open arms. Because one of the things that really signified who you were as a person was a terrible 4-letter word called L-O-V-E, love. You exuded, and it wasn't terrible. It was gorgeous, a fantastic word. You were a person who, no matter what, could not control your ability to love others. And it's something that all of us have gained lessons from, and will be an opportunity to be a vessel that we can ride through life. So thank you, Marty, Matis Ben David, for being the incredible, fantastic, gorgeous individual that you are. We love you, and we will always miss you and care for you. And the impact that you've made in so many people's lives will only grow and spread in much the same way as a drop of water does in a pond, with a great ripple effect. Your impact on the world will never stop. Thank you, Marty. We love you.
Well, obviously, we'll continue to tell stories for many days, weeks, and years to come. And this morning, we'll have some final words of eulogy from a dear friend and partner in crime for many years, Avram Rosenzweig.
By the way, I just got a text that before Marty died, he hired a phone company to call all of us 5 times a day for the rest of our lives. Yeah, exactly. Thank God. And I also want to tell you, thank you, Rabbi, thank you. Julius was very holy in his eulogy, but he didn't tell you some of the funniest stuff. We were sitting over Marty's bed 2 days ago, day before he passed, and Julius says, I have a wonderful joke for you. I go, Marty, go tell Marty. He likes that stuff. He goes, Mr. Goldstein was dying, and he calls over his son Shmuel. He says, Shmuel says, what can I do for you, Daddy? He goes, I'm so hungry. I want something to eat. This is Julius telling Marty in his deathbed. And he says, okay, I'll go ask Mommy. Maybe we can get you some strudel. He goes, he comes back, and he goes, please, I'm so hungry. Well, Shmuel, what did Mommy say? She said, Daddy, I'm sorry, the food's for the Shiva. It gives you a little bit of insight. He did, he laughed. Marty is gone forever for now. That's an awkward thing to say, and it's even more so, it's very awkward to believe. It's as if the moon was removed from our sky or the sands from the beach. With his passing, with his death, there's a certain imbalance, an unevenness, a bumpiness along our road that won't ever really go away. It is as if our heart has stopped even momentarily, and somehow we need to get it started again. But how do we do that? How do we breathe again? How do we walk alone? So Marty and I were never married, but we are forever attached at the hip, and forever a team called Marty and Avram, the food guys. For those of you who are not familiar with Marty and Avram, let me get you up to snuff. Part of it, by the way, is the apron that I'm wearing here. This was our pre-stained apron line. We thought it would go throughout the world. And then when I put on this hoodie this morning, I noticed there was a mustard stain on from last night's dinner. I thought, well, maybe that's not appropriate. And then I thought, no, that's perfect, actually. I met Marty Galin in the mid-'80s at Julius Sis's Passover Seder. When I met Marty, like so many before and after, I was taken by his frizzy afro, his boisterous nature, and his very rotund character. I recall how Marty would talk loudly so the entire house could hear every word, and the things that he said were highly inappropriate, like talking about my very robust tummy. Marty wanted to make sure everyone in the room was aware of his views, but more so that they knew Marty was in the venue, together with them, and that he was funny, and that he was hilarious, and that he was comical, and he was simply far, far bigger than life itself. Marty and I, we grew our friendship very quickly. I liked him, and he liked me. And over a short period of time, my new exciting friend and I began spending a lot of time together. Marty was different than anyone I had ever known before, especially because of my yeshiva background. He taught me about the city, in particular anything south of Lawrence and Bathurst. He introduced me to the gay community, and he invited me to attend the very first Gay Pride Day parade. But mostly my dear friend, my new friend, showed me the world he was involved in, and that was the worlds of art and entertainment. Marty was an actor. He was flamboyant. He appeared in small parts in movies like North 44. His persona in film was the same as in life. He was hilarious, embracing a sort of slapstick humor that filled the big and small screen alike. Soon enough, Marty's insatiable drive to create led him down a road to produce and to star in shows and to write his very own, like Galinsky's and Prime Rib, with his dear friends like Gloria, like Bruce, Sam, and Jim. I was mesmerized by Marty's life, by his following, and his desire to make everyone part of his vision and his passion. I wanted to be part of that world and escape from the stultifying component of my yeshiva upbringing. I wanted so desperately to breathe freely and see what the broader world was all about. Marty offered me that, as he did so many other people who tripped over his charm and his charisma. Soon enough, we eased into the 90s, and my awareness of Marty's downtown world grew. I understood more and more about his incredible drive to actualize the gift from within his spirit, that being to act and share happiness everywhere, always. Slowly but surely, I was coming to life. Marty was making sure of that. Everyone, and their posse, knew Marty Galin. It seemed like my buddy was the mayor of his high-rise apartment at Wesleyan Church, and that he and his dog, Lenny, was familiar to the throngs of people parading up and down Church Street. The community seemed to love Marty, and they did, because he just made others feel good about themselves and to be visible in a world and place that often made people feel very invisible. Marty was a star, and he was hanging out with him, and I was hanging out with him. I began feeling very special. As time went on, Marty began producing and opening doors for himself in the radio and television industry. Sometime around 1995, when I was about to launch a Jewish nonprofit called V'Ahavta, Marty told me he was going to be a writer for a gay magazine. Well, that didn't surprise me one bit, except for the fact that he didn't own a computer. He wasn't much of a writer, and rarely, if ever, took notes of the world around him. But before long, Marty began producing articles about local restaurants. There, with his pencil on pads of paper, the old one with coils around the spine. Now, I believed in Marty's abilities to make this gig happen, so I asked him if I could join him as a restaurant critic, knowing next to nothing about any food myself except gefilte fish, cholent, and kosher brisket. Marty agreed, and then I became tenderloin, and he became Phil A. Marty would write the first draft, and he would hand it to me, and I would type it onto Word and hand it into the magazine's publisher. Every single article written was well accepted and published. Marty's trick was simply to be himself in pen and on paper, and he demanded that of me as well. This was the beginning of Marty and Avram and thousands of free meals across the city. One day, Marty told me that his very dear friend, Gloria Martin of CHFI, a dear friend of all of ours, and a star on radio, told him that Talk 640 was looking for on-air hosts to produce and host their own shows. Marty called the program director and asked him for an audition. We were granted one and appeared one day on the Horseman Lederman's show talking crazily and over the top about our restaurants and food experiences, which were quite limited. The program director called Marty the next day and he said, you know, if you want one, there's a job here for you, a weekly food show. Now, Marty and I had never done radio before, especially live, and I remember the jitters we accepted that we experienced the very first Sunday morning. The moment arrived, the producer flipped on the "You're on the air" sign, and there we were, supposed food and eatery pundits, yakking about local eateries and debating the reason for going to a restaurant. 1, the food. 2, the ambiance. 3, the service. I sweated then and for the next 10 years, quite frankly, hoping and praying that nobody would ask me any questions about food. But Marty, he had no fear at all. He was completely convinced that he was an amazing chef, and his turkey basted in Coca-Cola and orange juice convinced him of that, right? Well, good morning, I said. Welcome to the Marty and Avram Food Show. The music wound down. Only Marty and I were left feeling somewhat naked and incredibly vulnerable, but surprisingly electric with life and a powerful desire just to talk. And we did. I turned to Marty and I said, so Marty, here we are on live radio to talk about food. Let me ask you, do you even like food? Well, he gave me that look that he would 1,000 times over the years. His stare down said, don't screw this up, Avram. He knew that I could be a kochleffel, I could stir the pot, and he wanted to make sure that we had a success. Loving but contentious we were off the wall, really knowing little about food other than the thick, highly caloric Eastern European dishes I had been exposed to, and Marty's knowledge of pasta plates at the spaghetti factory, where he had been a waiter, and not a very good one. The thing was, we really loved and respected each other, but we were just so different. We'd fight all the time, bickering like an old couple, but as soon as the on-air light went on, we were magic. Things started to come together. Marty and Avram, the food guys, the show barreled forward with zest. We learned more and more about cooking terms and the plethora of eateries in our fair city. We began to know where the best calamari was, which of course is at Yevsov's. Very good. And that Louis XIV was $300 a shot. Mistake we made one day. We'd eat at Ruth's Chris with an entourage of 15 people or so, discovering that a steak could be in excess of 50 ounces. Our show was on fire, and people were listening, and they were calling in. In fact, one of the first calls that we got was from a creep who said about spewing anti-Semitic garbage about us. Why, he asked our guest, the galloping gourmet, the late Graham Kerr, and his wife, lovely wife Trina, were you two hanging out with these two Jewish boys? Trina took the call like a gracious Southern belle and rebuked the caller in her thick drawl, stating, "Why, Graham and I just adore those Jewish boys. We're honored to be with Marty and Avram, and I suggest to you, caller, to go out and find some good Christian goodness." Amazingly, throughout the years, 10 years together, Marty and I never again received an anti-Semitic call or notes. The galloping gourmet and his wife always held a special place in our hearts. Because of Marty's highly effusive and likable nature, no guest was out of bounds. During the week when we'd prepare the show, Marty would regularly tell me that the guests we'd have on the show that week were such individuals as Michael Bublé, Harry Belafonte, Jose Feliciano, James Carvell, and James talked about his great love for the Passover Seder and crawdad matzah, unleavened bread. Sure enough, the day of the show would arrive and megastars would walk into our tiny studio and quickly pick up on the quirky, often out-of-control culinary environment. I remember once we had David Wolfman on. He's a well-known native Jewish chef who we gave permission to grill buffalo burgers in the studio. Well, the smoke was thick and the smell was putrid. There's no offense to buffalo burgers. The aroma wafted throughout the entire station, and Marty and I felt like we were losing consciousness. We felt this overwhelming sense of nausea. Complaints rolled in from the entire station, and then soon enough, the burgers were tossed into the kitchen sink and doused with cold water. It was these things, like having a 40-man homeless choir from Quebec in the studio, that eventually would get us fired. They were exciting times, but with few limits in quite a conservative industry. But no matter what, Marty and I, we always bounce back. And because of Marty's genius, his brilliance, his brilliant way of integrating himself to others. We were gifted with such experiences as singing on-air classic songs like Light My Fire with Jose Feliciano, and Marty and I sang the Banana Boat song with Harry Belafonte. And of course, we were always privy to magnificent dishes cooked up by world-renowned chefs like Massimo Capra, Michael Calavera, Michael Statlander, Mark Tewitt, and Mark McEwen. They all seemed to understand our limited understanding of gourmet and high-end food, but never refused an invite. They would roll in with silliness and joy, our irreverence they accepted, and a great sense of hospitality and appreciation was always pervasive, and that's what they loved. Over the years, guest chefs from around the world would continue to join us, as would sommeliers, hoteliers, servers, and restaurant guests. The only one who would ever refuse our invitation to the Marty and Avram show was Susur Lee. We never forgot that and made sure the listeners didn't as well. And in fact, we're making sure, right, Marty, that no one forgets that here. Renee Unger of Renee's Cellar Dressing was a regular on the show, as was the amazing Massimo Capra, our friend and brilliant international chef and restaurateur. Diane Douglas, our very dear friend, had a regular feature on food and local restaurants, which we simply loved, and she just loved being with us. Everyone just enjoyed and embraced being together, and they did because they knew at the heart and soul of our show was the one and only Marty Galin. Guests from all parts of the city, of the province, of the country, and in fact the world would join us, and it always seemed like they were best friends with Marty. The vast majority of them would stay after the show to join us in the green room for a feast and would stay in touch with Marty for years to come. Those high-profile women and men who were often thought of as being snooty or cocky cooks and chefs embraced Marty because he embraced them with a hug, with kind words, and mostly with authenticity. I'd watch carefully as Marty would take a forkful of Massimo's beet risotto in his mouth, close his eyes, and promptly say, "This is the best risotto I have ever tasted." It was as if the room was falling in love. At that very moment, and at the very center of the culinary romance, was the inimitable Marty Galin. Our beautiful companion, Marty, would cut a piece of Mark Tewitt's chicken brie sandwich on sliced multigrain, essentially a roasted chicken breast with a cranberry jam, a mew mustard, and brie. He'd savor the taste for a moment, and then another, and turn to the guests and say, "I have never enjoyed a sandwich so much as this one." And then Marty would look at me and say, "Avram, is this not the best brie sandwich that you've ever had?" And of course I'd say yes, even if it wasn't, because the show wasn't really about food. It was about the love happening in that tiny space, initiated by the man himself, who knew better than most how to love, and that was Marty Galin. That was a normal Sunday morning, and they would go on for a decade, feast after feast, celebration after celebration. People would stop Marty in the street, knowing him by his frizzy afro and those glasses that had no lenses in them, and ask him for his autograph. Marty became a superstar and was happily and sometimes begrudgingly along and sometimes begrudgingly for that star-studded ride. And with our growth and development, Marty would bring on hordes of volunteers, chefs, assistants, and servers to help prepare the feasts brought into the studio and the huge meals after the show. It was clear they weren't all needed, but it didn't matter because Marty wanted them there. He just liked all of them, and he wanted as many people around him as possible because that was what made him breathe. The show was his castle. It was his Oz. And to Marty, there were never too many guests, too many visitors, or too many helpers. And even though I complained about the masses he brought out, saying in my stodgy old way, "Marty, you know what? We're going to get fired." You know what? We just kept going. And I will tell you today that I was wrong. Those were magical moments. Those were charmed and enchanted times. Those were days I will never forget and forever hold in my heart, as you will, because they were the invention, the creation, the recipe for life emanating from the spirit and the soul of the inimitable and the magical Marty Galin. And those are the moments that will never come again. And they just got better and better, and soon enough, Marty added television shows to the mix, including The Movable Feast, Beer Buddies, and exactly the same thing happened on TV set. More food than an army could eat, more people helping than a Hollywood budget could manage, and mostly more love and more Marty Galin. And the amazing thing was Marty Galin worked by the seat of his pants. and did so with flair unmatched by any producer or CEO throughout radio and television history. He was beloved by the industry and embraced by the culinary pundits of that time. Because of the zany yet warm environment Marty Galin created without a plan or a vision set out in a document, it became an honor to be a guest on our show. Marty, simply put, made everyone who walked into our studio feel like $1 million. They fed Marty, and what he loved more, he fed them. Marty Galin became a star, a superstar, and he brought me along for the ride, along with another 10,000 unsuspecting people from across the world. Rabbis would tell us that they listened to our show on the way to the funeral on a Sunday morning. Fathers and mothers tuned into us, making sure to do so without their children in the car. Those cocky wine lovers we all know and hate morphed into fans after being hosted by the effusive and loving Marty Galin. Marty Galin changed my life as he did many of yours. He introduced me to outlandishness, reminding me constantly that form and focus was not the only thing to remember about making good radio and TV, about living life to its fullest. To our dear Marty, the starting point of creating the best form of communication on or off the air was the way to live was through community. His rules were really simple. Provide as much warmth as possible, as often as you can, and never ever close the door to another person, no matter who they are, because they might benefit from Marty's Camelot. Marty was one in a billion. To those of us who were honored by God to meet him, to know him, to spend time with him, to eat from the dishes he provided, we know in our heart that for a brief moment in our lives, we were with someone who had no pretenses, no double standards, or unseen motivations. We were with a superstar of a human being, Marty Galin, a one-off created by God, someone who had one singular goal in life, and that was to have just one more bite of food with you, a morsel of goodness, be it Italian or Thai, Mexican or kosher, native or Cuban, the objective being to love even more all the hours of the day, all the days of his life. Never will there be another Marty Galin. He was a holy man in his own right, imbued with unending kindness and the wisdom to love and repair our world in a way like no other. Marty, I'll miss you, and thank you for coming our way. Accolades to you, my friend, for letting me hang on to your world-class coattails and to have any chance to feel like a bit of a star, if only for a moment. And a great big hug and a jolly and warm send-off from everyone you've loved, including Gloria and Jean, Julius and Claire, Mateo, Diane and the boys, Bruce, Allison, Roberto, Ishbel, Lisa, Khalil, Linda and Linda, and Erico, Janice, Aaron, Steve, Kathy, Laura, Alan, Jose, Taya, Ava, Roz, and a zillion more. Now, Marty, you will be in heaven with God, with the angels, and with the greatest chefs ever. And they will sit at your feet learning about love from the Master. And together with you, the community on the clouds will gobble up the most wonderful spiritual culinary delights. And then without warning, heavenly condiments will drop onto their white frocks and wings for eternity, for always, because you are and will always be a stainer, just like me. And together you will laugh and sing and dance and appreciate the true nature of those holy lyrics you love so much. People who need people are the luckiest people. Marty Galin, until we eat again, I love you, we love you. God, you created a gem of a human being, and now he's yours again. How lucky you are. Lots of luck. He's a handful. Thank you.
Just before we recite the memorial prayer, two things come to mind. Speaking of acting in theater, I remember seeing an interview when Siskel and Ebert unfortunately was sick later on in life and he was unable to eat, and he had to eat through a tube, and they asked him whether he missed food, eating food. And he said, you don't understand, it's not about the food. It's about sitting at the table with people over food. That everything in life is about the connections that we make. Remember the first time we took a road trip with our family down to Florida, we passed through some very, Bible Belt states, and there was a big billboard saying, "Love your fellow like your neighbor, love your fellow neighbor like yourself. God, And then in small words, I mean it. Now we have a major principle, V'ahavta l'recha kamocha, love your fellow neighbor like yourself, and we say it so easily. But for a person to really love every fellow like himself, no matter where they come from, no matter who they were, it could be the awkward giant who has no friends at the age of 14 at a party. It could be his wonderful caretakers, friends of old and new friends along the way, all equal, just good souls to connect to, and realizing that we're in this world to make those connections. I just encourage people to share stories, more stories. When you listen to what other people have to share, you realize that there was so much to learn, so many examples to follow. May he continue to inspire much goodness in this world through his memory and bring lots of life and love to each other. Please rise for the memorial prayer. El malei rachamim, shochen b'mremim, hamtzei menucha nachon al kanfei hashchina, b'malos kedoshim utarim, kezor harakia mazhirim, es nishmas matis ben David, shalach le'olamo, Bavur shanachnu mispalim bad haskaras nishmaso began Eden teimenu chaso lachein balarachamim yastira b'seiser kenafav li'olamim v'yitzra b'tzra chemes nishmaso Adonai hu nachlaso v'yanuach b'shalom ha'mishkavo v'namar Amen. God, full of compassion, who dwells on high, grant proper rest on the sheltering wings of your presence, the lofty levels of the holy and pure who shine as the brightness in the firmament, unto the soul of Marty Galin, Matis ben David, who has gone to his world, and for those whose memory we pray. May his rest be in paradise. May the Master of compassion bring him under the cover of God's wings, bind his soul in the bond of life. May the Lord be his heritage. May he repose in his resting place in peace. And let us respond and say, Amen. Amen. Will the pallbearers please come forward? The interment will take place in Bathurst Lawn Memorial Park, where that is, as well as Shiva details can be found in the small little booklet provided.